That is for?
Could be. Marina said she's not coming because she doesn't want to be recorded.
Because she doesn't,
Want to be recorded.
It's going to say, it's going to ask you to stop the event, or
Yeah.
to stop the stream, or stop the event. You're going to have to take the little black line and toggle it down.
well, it's real life.
So it's,
Welcome to real life.
That's what I said.
and then you walk away from that.
So that's,
You have,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Transparency, I'm all for it. I mean, it does have a chilling
and you
effect.
have to go back to TV loop.
Do we have consensus, though? I'm trying to think.
All the time.
Can we start our meeting?
Yeah, right?
Red,
Answer the question properly.
okay, so I hit,
Juniper?
You are live.
Okay. Just quiet.
just,
All right, we have 4 people here. I don't know if we have, let's see now. Quorum. What are we at now with regard to membership? Let's see, call members. So I guess we can proceed with our discussions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9 no, with one removing, that's 8 members. We've got, I think is this considered a quorum, Mark? We've got half. We don't have half plus 1.
I'm not a expert in that. I think we should presume it is. Because we have one less member that resigned, correct? So
That's correct. Okay, very good. There are some agendas here. If anybody didn't bring their agenda, take a reach. And did you have an opportunity to look at the March minutes that I attached as a PDF to the email? Does anybody have any comments?
I thought those already went out a long time ago.
I thought they did, but I wasn't clear on that because they're not posted.
Well, I sent her the PDF
You did.
of the
Well,
approved
I
minutes.
looked
so
last
that-
week and they weren't posted. So
Interesting.
I need to get some more things.
So just let her know that I did send them to her.
So everybody's okay with those March minutes?
you have to have your microphone on green. That's the button. There you go.
Leave it on the whole time.
Might as well.
We didn't, but yeah, I guess.
So we've got,
Keep breathing.
for who's
Heavy
uneasy
breathing.
about being recorded, Mark,
Yeah, Marina stopped by she saw me outside today and said she's not going to attend anymore because she feels like the recorded video meeting has a chilling effect, and that any citizens that wanted to, because the meetings are open, that any citizens that felt strongly could attend, and that would be less of a chilling effect than having it broadcast, and so she was going to talk to you directly.
I think that's something that should be brought up to the select board, then to maybe change the decision to stream all the meetings, because it's not an individual decision about individual, it's about having as much transparency as possible in all the committee meetings. So, that if we change it for one, we have to change it for all of them.
right, and you might take into consideration that Pathways, for instance, being a 2-town committee, goes to both venues, one in Rockport and one in Camden, and so I don't know what the recording options are in Rockport, but in Camden, maybe that's recordable, so you're going to get every other meeting recorded. There won't be consistency no matter what, because we can't all meet here.
I understand. I'm in this situation, I'm the messenger, but it would need to come to the whole board.
Okay, well, I would like to at least lodge my significant concern
Okay.
that we are losing the participation of a very valued member as a result of this, and that concerns me greatly, and I'd like you to pass that on to the board if you don't
Okay?
mind.
I will do that.
Yeah, I'd like to second that, although I certainly think that transparency is good. I think that open meetings, open personal meetings are transparent as they are, and that so I'm concerned about, like, I would love that if there were that many people at Energy Committee meetings sitting as tacit participants, that would be awesome. But the idea that you could say, I'm going to record these so that at some point I could potentially use what you said in some manner that you might not be comfortable with is certainly a concern. And so I think, and Anita expressed the idea that it probably is, in some ways, the select board hasn't thought all the consequences through in terms of it sounds like it would be more of a community building to have open streamed meetings, but it might be paradoxically having the opposite effect.
I think you may be right, so I will bring that up.
Thank you, Mark, appreciate
Encourage
it.
people to not attend.
Was this done because others felt that there needed to be more transparency, or
I'm going to,
Just a good
People on the
idea.
select board that felt that, the more, we just put in a new camera system, we now have stuff on YouTube, the more we can involve the public in everything that we do, by having the Energy Group or CDAC on streaming so people can watch them, may get more people involved in the process. That was the goal, of having more people involved in the town processes, and having them be able to observe what's going on, would go, oh, I didn't realize that, we can, let me get more involved. It was just, making it more transparent and trying to get more people involved. That's the purpose behind it.
Right, so if you have less people involved, then that would be, like, everybody would be horrified.
Possibly the case.
yes, so pass that along about losing. I mean, we're having trouble reaching quorum for that very reason, which is not a good thing. And my understanding is that we attempt transparency through distribution of the minutes and through
I understand, I think.
posting the meetings, times and places online and the agendas online and so on.
And welcoming people to
And
come.
we always welcome people, so they're welcome to come and participate.
It's a bit of, it's a conundrum. I feel like on the one hand, it's a good thing. On the other hand, if people are bowing out, it's potentially.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, I can see, body cams, I can see where they're necessary, but for,
For us?
all wear body cams?
for the police, perhaps, but for community members, body cams may not really quite
I
be
mean,
as necessary.
We could instead just get secretaries that follow them around and keep minutes for everything that the police do, but I don't think that might be inefficient.
Yeah, we do have minutes
Yeah,
taken.
just because you have the technology doesn't mean you should use it.
That's I'm going to quote that, just because. I'm taking minutes today because we lost our wonderful secretary for this particular meeting. Okay.
You should probably say we have some people that are out of town, so are not available.
Yes, somebody's stuck in New York, right? Does anybody have any non-agenda items that they would like to suggest? In case you think the agenda is not long enough?
Well, I'd just like to bring up, just since it's Earth Day, is that in the agenda, Earth Day?
Earth Day is not mentioned in the agenda.
Yeah,
Is
so
today
I'll
Earth
just
Day?
bring up,
Yeah.
today is Earth Day, and so I'll bring that up in the agenda because it's interesting to note that, first of all, Earth Day 1970, the first Earth Day was the largest public
72?
demonstrations in the world
No, it would have
to
been
that date.
1970, because I was still in.
Yes,
70, yeah.
1970 was the largest.
70.
It was the largest
Right, I
public
remember now.
demonstration in the
Sadly.
to date. And as a result of Earth Day, amazing things happened. For example, the Clean Water Bill, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, both passed in the Nixon administration with Republican support. And as a result, Maine rivers and streams and lakes, which were undrinkable and many unswimmable, have completely switched over in the ensuing years as a result of citizen pressure on government to change legislation. So I think it's important to remember that, especially in light of, Extinction Rebellion in London, 25,000 people, 25,000 young people protesting last Friday in the streets of Rome, and student protest in Augusta tomorrow, and student march in Camden on Saturday. That it is through citizen involvement that change is made, and so we should forget that at our peril.
Actually, I had one non-agenda item, although you mentioned them, just the march in Augusta tomorrow. So like if anybody wants to come to that, and the march on Saturday, which will be starting in the Watershed School parking lot at 10 a.m.? I believe it's 10 a.m.
And going to the Village Green.
And going to the Village Green.
And there's speakers and
12.
tents. Should be good.
Okay.
Focus climate, is that what I heard?
Yeah.
So-
I have a question about that. I noticed that internationally, it's been, Fridays has been the typical student-led day. Why are we, around the world, why are we doing Tuesdays and Saturdays?
I don't know. So the Tuesday march is being put on by the 360 organization, 360.com.
Org.
Or .org. And then the Saturday march was actually originally going to be last Saturday, but it was just really gross out, so it was rescheduled. And so I think it was just because it was during school break, and so it was a convenient time. No one wanted to have homework, but
And that is is there a specific thing you're after with that march?
it's going to be, the focus is going to be on high school students educating adults on climate change.
There's an interesting article that's I'm not sure where exactly it is, but they've done a survey. Somebody did a survey and said that 45% of students in the United States have some sort of formal education on climate change in their high school years, but that something like 90% of parents wish that their students had climate change education as part of their school.
One thing I was mentioning, and remember, there is a website called FridaysForFuture.com, I believe it's .com, and it has, there's a graph and a map where you can see the locations all around the world where students are marching, and in a lot of cases every Friday, and there's some big events coming up. May 3rd, I believe, is another big international Fridays for Future March for students. So
Yeah.
something that, if you're interested, you should look at because the map, it shows you both previous and new upcoming, and there's a graph that shows you how many countries and how many people are expected. It's quite an interesting site.
Thank you.
It's students again, though, right?
Yeah.
All students.
I'd also bring your attention to the release of a consortium of global banks have just released a 30-page report, effectively calling for massive change in banking investment and banking infrastructure to take into account climate change. And these are, global large banks that have effectively said, okay, we get it. We're going to start working to diminish the power of the fossil fuel, the financial power of fossil fuels.
The other website, Youth Strike for the number 4 climate, is the other site where those locations, one or the other has the map and the information about what's going on internationally. Quite educational.
Who's that site called?
That one's Youth Strike for, and it's the number 4 climate. I believe it's .com. It might be .org. I'm not sure.
And finally, Extinction Rebellion, which is the British sort of lead group. They've just had multi-day protests, quite disruptive protests in London, including gluing themselves to cars, police cars, laying down in the streets. They've effectively hobbled London, And in what must be one of the greatest media gaffes of all time, the progressive mayor of London said, okay, guys, we get it, but we need to get London back to business as usual. Wondering where his media team is to advise him on which phrasing to use.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I think
Dana, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for enabling us to achieve quorum.
Quorum, as I told you.
As spoken, as stated.
And I have a question.
It's in time.
Is there any way we can change your mind about your decision?
No, I just told
You have to turn your mic on.
I don't want to talk into the mic.
There you go. There you go.
Does that have something to do with your reason to withdraw?
What?
The mic, the streamed
Streaming, we're
meeting?
streaming now.
No, I don't care about that.
Okay.
Nothing to do. It just, I mean, basically, I have probably less knowledge about these things than anybody.
You really should hit it.
Where are you? Hit push?
Just,
Yeah.
it's good. It'll turn green.
kind of
There you
point it
go.
towards
And
yourself.
twist it.
So basically, I have probably less knowledge than anybody on the committee, and I bring my, sort of my businessman legal perspectives to these things, but
Which is
I,
helpful.
I think that's really important and really helpful, and you bring, I hate to say, common sense and some,
Excuse me,
common sense and
is he the only common sense
No, no.
person
Say that? I
among
just said
us?
that's what he's bringing. I think it's important to be, we don't need people that just know a lot about it. We need people that are committed to, being aware and being interested. So I would like to dissuade you from,
Well, I respect his choice to have a choice.
yeah, you have some good new people on the committee, I think that's wonderful. And so I think it's probably time for me to bow out, and God forbid you get anybody with common sense on one of these committees, it'd just be the end of it, you know? You just say, well, we can't do that, you know? I don't see that. Common sense tells you you can't do that. And then and so you don't do it. I mean, I think it's wonderful the way things are and the way they've worked out.
So we can drag you in for occasional legal consultations.
You may, and if you may email
We need
me.
to call upon you to,
Yeah, I would, if it's something that's doable, I would be happy to do it. I've not abandoned.
Get ready for Wind on Ragged, you'll probably be back.
You might hear from
be
me. You might hear from me.
possible.
Better me than somebody else in the family.
Perhaps, yeah.
She come down here with her 456 members of her little committee. She represented half the voting block in the town. Only 900 people would come out for an election, and my wife had 450 of them on her committee, on her list.
has
Again,
come
thank
up
you,
in conversations on the select board again, so.
again, thank you, Dana, for,
On Ragged?
we're not discussing that right now because it's not on the agenda.
Well, I don't want to be on the committee. I want to be where I can actually defend my home, my property.
Again, thank you, Dana, for serving. I need to move on to the first item on the agenda, actually, which is our work towards converting the streetlights to LED lights. And I can fill you in on where the town is with regard to that. I attended a meeting that, excuse me, was held with the town planner, Jeremy Martin, Rick Seibel, the Public Works Director, Bob Falciani, the Chair of the Select Board, and what do I got here? Jock Hansen from Realterm, and myself, Anita Bryce-Scott, Chair of the Energy Committee. And we, this was with Realterm, which is based out of Baltimore, at least the person who is assigned to work with the town is based out of Baltimore. I don't know, I get the sense that Realterm is kind of scattered all over the place in terms of their personnel. That person is Mohammed Abbas, A-B-B-A-S. He has been designated the project manager, and he is the liaison to the town of Camden from Real Term as he works on this project. I did send ahead of time the list of questions that that you're encouraged, that the committee's encouragement I put together, and with the committee looking over it, and it's kind of a long list of questions, at least to let them know what we are thinking about and concerned about. There was no direct response to those questions. There's a sense that they will get back to us when that time comes, and I think we just have that basically lodged as a framework of what we're interested in and, what we need to have answered and so on.
Do you have a quick list of the questions? So,
Do you want me,
do
do you want me to read them?
yeah.
It's a long list.
It's a whole page.
We don't need to have.
This
you
is
read
it.
Yeah, she sent those out.
Yeah.
Can you do highlights, just so people that are watching the meeting have a sense of what
Sure.
you're talking about?
Okay, so the questions came under two general headings. One would be the lights themselves and the fixtures and the specifications of those. So we want to be sure that the color temperature will be at or below 3,000 degrees Kelvin, and with a question about whether we can actually specify 2,700 degrees Kelvin. Those are pretty warm in color temperature as compared with a rather bright daylight look or blue look to the lights. Speaking as a photographer, when I'm looking at color temperature, 5,500 degrees Kelvin is daylight, and 3,200 is tungsten light. So that gives you a sense of where 3,000 falls and where 2,700 degrees falls. So it's a warm tone to the light. Will the lumen output be moderate and not too bright? Can we designate different lumen output for residential versus commercial areas? Can the output be adjusted for waking versus sleeping hours? Can they be dimmed, scheduled, and so on? Will there be integrated fixture networking? They talk to each other. Will we incorporate smart metering? Can there be motion-sensitive technology incorporated? These will not necessarily be answered all yes. They're just questions that we wanted to ask. And they're not all necessarily requests we're making per se. How will they manage the photometrics so that we can minimize the light trespass? This is important to the committee and important in terms of their preferences for dark sky, to have our town move towards dark sky, meaning minimum light spillage and trespass as a town, which is going to take a while. Will we be able to designate asymmetrical fixture output, meaning more light on the travel ways than in residential yards and buildings? Will we look at strictly flat cutoff, which means that light is not visible at 90 degrees? Or would there be a potential for recessed bulbs, meaning that there would be a more even slightly cone-shaped distribution of light? So we're curious about the distribution of light, but we are very concerned, I believe, as a committee in terms of light trespass and getting light where it needs to be without having it where we don't want it. So questions about height placement on poles, fixture design choices, so that's an aesthetic question. Different fixtures, designs in different areas, another aesthetic question, and minimal bulk to the fixture. And then this is important, what metric will be used to determine the number of streetlights and which fixtures we would remove? Can Real Term estimate what percentage of the existing streetlights will be recommended to be removed? And we do expect them to look at how the lights will be distributed throughout the town in a way that is consistent in terms of its logic, making sense. Then the second category will be information, communication, education. How do we communicate with the real term? How does the committee communicate with them, and so on? I have received an answer to that, and that is basically that everything goes through the town manager. So if the Energy Committee wants to talk to real term, we need to address our question to the town manager, who would forward it as she sees fit.
Are we going to get some input into the final plan before implementation?
Well, that's the hope, but we're a ways before that. I mean, we're not really close to that yet. I'll finish with the questions,
sorry,
and then I'll
go
tell
ahead.
you what the result of our discussion was. So the process for public communication, for educating the public, getting feedback from the public and from the committee about those things, and about fixture removals as well. And asked whether the consultant would be willing to meet with the Energy Committee, but since our consultant is based out of Baltimore, the likelihood of the actual consultant physically being here is low. However, with Skype technology and telephone, we'll probably be able to meet with them in that way. We would like them to provide information about the health effects of the color temperature lighting that we'd be using, and wondering whether they might have any research results that provide information on any correlation between lighting and crime in communities similar to ours. That means not inner cities, but small towns. And is there a model Maine community that has gone through this process that we could look at for examples of their work? So that's the long list of questions. A lot of them, some have been answered, a lot of them can't be answered yet. The process going forward is that they will send a survey with questions, I believe, to the town's office, and that's where our list of questions that we presented will be helpful. And I hope that the select board will also make sure that our questions are a part of that survey and are answered. Then the most important next step is that they will create their survey of existing lights, so GPS locations, fixture type, pole numbers, pedestrian activity, and all of that, so that they can feed that into their design phase, which would be next. Meanwhile, the town has already begun the process of streetlight acquisition. We have not purchased the streetlights, but we have gotten some preliminary information that will lead us in that direction. The most important one being what the net book value is for the hardware that exists that we would be purchasing. And that number was presented as $36,295.
Can I clarify a question? Is that the poles effectively?
My understanding is that it's the fixtures, not the poles.
But the fixtures would be replaced, so why
Yes.
do we have to, why can't we
Well, there's
just,
the arms and stuff,
Yeah.
too.
okay,
It's-
so they're going to reuse the arms?
I don't know the specifics of that.
Yeah, so that would be something that I would be interested to know
I think that the
more
real
about.
term would probably present that to the select board as to what, that's, I thought the net book value is what we would have to pay CMP to get to get ownership.
But why do we want ownership? My question is, why don't we want to get rid of
Well,
ownership?
we
Before we can tear it down.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we lease it, so you should just say, yeah, we're not using them
I
anymore.
believe that the net book value is based on what has not yet reached his 15-year life write-off. So they, it's written, a lamp is got a 15-year, I'm not using the right term for
Yeah, depreciation.
depreciation period of 15 years, and if it's not fully depreciated, then we need to pay for that. And
Got
that's
it.
my understanding
Okay.
where the price comes
All right.
from. Okay,
I'm wondering,
question?
I remember at some point, it's been mentioned the exact savings we're expecting from switching to LEDs from, I think it's been,
Yeah.
I was wondering if
do
you have that number. 'Cause I don't,
handy?
It's in the, I believe it's in their proposal. Yes. I could probably email you.
That would be great. Thanks.
I could look it up if you want me to take a minute to look it up.
That would-
We'll get it.
We can get.
Anita, I have a question about, some of those questions seem like they might lead us to purchasing a different kind of bulb or fixture, and I wondered if, how the cost information that you're developing now through the context, whatever it was that you just mentioned, how does that provide room to adjust the specific bulb, the technology to reflect public concerns, if there are any, that's all.
Right, so I think they will be presenting, they're going to be working with the town to come up with the design, and that design will come before the town for feedback. Is that the point of which you're talking about? Designing, meaning,
The specific cost she mentioned was about the already existing bulbs and buying them from CMP.
We also had
That won't change depending on
Technology that
Yeah.
we're.
We did also have from Realterm effectively a cost that would vary slightly based on certain, whether we got this fixture or that fixture, there might be a slight change to the cost. But they basically said, here's a realistic cost ballpark. And one of the things that concerns me is, for example, when we put in the much better lighting, the LED fully cut off lighting on Main Street, to replace the Acorn lights, those are supposed to be networked and controllable through an app effectively, but they haven't ever. If I understand correctly, they don't work. The networking doesn't work. So you can't actually schedule changes to the lumen value, after 1 a.m. or whatever.
I think you make the adjustment and leave it. We did, early on in developing the questions, want to know whether we would be able to adjust it. But I know our chair, Select Board Chair, is not in favor of proceeding in that direction of having it tunable, because it just simply doesn't work. And the problem is that there has to be sort of this antenna in a place where it gets reception from enough of these lights, and even on the top of the Opera House, it's not enough for the street lights. So it's problematic in that way. Brian Robinson, welcome. Take it, Mike.
Sorry.
Pick a mic, any mic.
Sorry, I was on a conference call, so I apologize.
Alex?
Well, that's unfortunate, because I think that is a when you're going to, I as an energy committee member, my concern would be that if we've got this modern technology to be able to communicate with these lights, and we're not going to employ it, and we're not going to spend this small amount of extra infrastructure money that might be required to speak to these, that is a missed opportunity, because, for example, in urban areas in Germany, all the lights are off unless you dial up on you get a code. And if you want to go for a walk and turn the lights on, you dial it up on your cell phone, boom, the lights come on. They stay on for a certain amount of time, and then they shut off. And so in terms of both from a dark sky perspective and an energy consumption perspective, to not have that technology seems very short-sighted.
I think maybe we're a couple of years down the road from when these lights were installed, so maybe the technology has improved, and that's something we need to investigate.
I agree.
Add that to the long list of questions for.
But I wouldn't just write that off as unfeasible based on our previous experience.
Okay, I think that's fair enough, yeah.
And I think part of what may encourage further steps towards energy efficiency community-wide is when people are satisfied with the results of something, when it doesn't diminish, but it perhaps enhances their experience.
Yeah.
That's a pretty positive thing, because it's reinforcing.
That's true. Alex, in answer to your question about how much savings we're looking at with this switchover, the high-pressure sodium lights cost, we lease from CMP. They lease on the basis of how many lights we have, not whether or not they work and not whether or not they're on. And we pay $46,500 a year for those. And let's see, the costs per year, trying to find that number. Okay, we're going to be spending that buyout amount, and the total cost will run about $171,000, including the consultants. And those costs are expected to be paid back in an estimated 4 years in reduced annual costs that we would not have been spending. And I'm trying to find the number for this total cost. I have the kilowatt hours.
Well, we can convert that because we know how much kilowatt hours cost, right?
Our savings were roughly in 70 to 80% reduced power use.
Okay.
So
Per
if
year.
we're spending 40, well, we don't know how much we're spending. We don't know how much power we're using. We only know how much we're spending.
That's right. I've got, let's see,
Yeah, I think the 4-year figure presupposes that the energy cost is fantastically lower than what we're spending now, so that that even with the installation cost and maintenance fee, that after 4 years, we recoup the total investment and we end up spending less.
so these draw, the way that, what I've got, the data I have here is that they draw, the present ones draw 167,000 kilowatt hours a year of energy, and the LEDs, if they're replaced lamp for lamp, and we're talking about a reduction in total number of lamps, so that may not be the case, it would reduce to 30,293 kilowatt hours a year. So from 167,000 to 30,000 is the reduction in kilowatt hours per year of energy.
Yeah, so and you said it's 30, I'll call it 31,000 kilowatt hours. Kilowatt hours are 16 cents now.
9, 10,
Yeah, but then you got the delivery charge.
right.
So, because it went up 13.7% in January. So it was 15, so call it 17 cents.
Also,
So it looks
are we
like we're
paying
talking
the-
about $5,000 a year for energy costs, down from 46,000. So it's a pretty good
So-
rate of return. It's 25% return on
I
our
think-
money annually.
I think that
First 4
it's
years.
definitely going to be a return in terms of the money we put out and the energy that is used. Now, the results of the survey will not be in until later in this year. And they are going to be, basically, Real Term hires out, they put out RFPs for the actual people that'll be doing the work. They don't themselves send their own staff to do the work. They hire locals to do the work, and they're overseeing it and managing it. The streetlight acquisition, as I said, has begun in terms of kind of the footwork that has to be done with CMP, but nothing that costs money can begin until July 1st, the new fiscal year, because it's been put into the budget for next year, which doesn't begin until July 1st of 2019. And they will be putting, Real Term will be putting out RFQs to the manufacturers and for installers and so on. They'll develop their designs and They will do, then they'll create an investment grade audit, and we'll send a summary of everything to the select board, and the town will sign an agreement about, once they come negotiate the agreement of what exactly is going to be done and how. Okay? Are there any other questions on that?
Let's just make sure that Energy Committee has some oversight and input in that.
Leaning on Mark to have his ears
Yeah.
open to those opportunities when they arise,
Yeah.
and to make sure that we will be able to have our input.
Can we
'Cause-
request an unredacted report be shared with the committee?
I hope so.
Redacting.
You could break a smile on that one, Dana. Jeez. Tough nut over here.
Raucous time listening to this.
Solar array expansion. I mean, first of all, before we move on to that, does anybody have any questions or anything you want to add to the streetlights to LEDs issue?
Next.
2 thumbs up from Brian. Solar array expansion, we can move on to. I can fill you in again on another meeting that was on the 10th of April with a representative from Revision Energy regarding their Q&A with the town. And let's see where my notes are on that. Probably not where I need them to be. No, I do have them. Let's see. So basically, they did have a few questions they needed to pursue, and the town is going to be getting back to us on those. They wanted to know one of the major questions that we had to kind of get our hands around was the clarifying how much of the electrical energy the town is now purchasing as RECs, or what does REC stand for?
Renewable energy.
Thank you, renewable energy credits. When Audra came in 2017, that's one of the first things that she got us going on, was buying renewable energy credits. But it turns out that those are not for the smaller.
And you know that we have access to all that data, and so does the select board, and I passed that along to everybody, right? And made a spreadsheet that shows that very clearly.
Well, the town was going to identify what percentage of our electrical accounts are small general service accounts. There are 3 different types of accounts. Small general service is one of them, and then there's sort of medium size, and then there's.
This is frustrating to me because all this information is very accessible, and not only does the town have it, but so does Revision Energy. So I'm a little confused as to what is necessary that doesn't already exist to the town, based on the spreadsheet that CMP sent us and that
There was mention of a spreadsheet, and I didn't know what, it says there was a spreadsheet sent to Nick, and
Yeah.
I wrote notes on that, but I didn't know what that meant. It's
That
probably
spreadsheet is
exactly what you're
very clear on exactly, it has all the account numbers, it has exactly what the account is, it has which is the supplier, is it the REC supplier, for which accounts are large, which accounts are small. It's every possible thing that you would want to know about the town's energy use is on that report. And so I'm concerned that the town doesn't know that they already are in possession of all the
Well, they
information.
make reference to it.
Okay, good. So they have all the information that they could possibly ever want in that report, in that CMP. And when I sent that along to revision, they were like, this is great. Everything we could possibly ever want is in this report.
Okay. Good.
So I would just want to be really clear. Let's make sure that we're not, that nothing, that the town, that there's no perceived lack of information, because there is no lack of information. All the information exists, and so to say that that information is not readily available is specious, and I want to make sure that that is not in the way of any rapid motion forward, because that information exists, is readily accessible and available to anybody.
I didn't get the sense that that is holding anything back.
Okay, good.
But I appreciate that input. So I was just kind of giving you a sort of a rundown of what was discussed. Because Bob Falciani was under the impression, who is our chair of the select board, was under the impression that we were purchasing all our energy as our RECs, and that is renewable energy credits, and that's not the case.
Correct.
So, they're just trying to get a handle around, how much do we want to offset with solar? How big does that solar really need to be? And for the larger accounts, like at the Snow Bowl, the price of delivery cannot be offset. The price of delivery is going to stay the price of delivery, which is extremely high because the amount of electricity that needs to be available at a moment's notice to the Snow Bowl is very high. I'm not sure what it is now, but when I was serving on the select board back in 2010, we were paying over $4,000 a month in the summer for the CMP account at the Snow Bowl.
That was to keep the pond lit up 24/7.
That was, it's the type of account. It's the fact that the high degree of electricity had to be presented to the Snow Bowl, and therefore it's there, therefore it's available to be tapped into, and you charge that delivery charge every month, whether you're using it or not. That's that type of account, as opposed to the smaller accounts.
I think that the problem with the Snow Bowl is when they do their snowmaking. It's just to turn
Right.
on the machine to such a
Right.
huge amount of
Yes.
power
But
that
what I-
it's not, there's a special charge for that kind
Demand
of power
charge.
that's not. like
Demand charge that is
residential
not offset by, no matter how much solar you make, the demand charge will always be there.
Right.
Now, obviously, if the state takes ownership of the utility, the demand charge.
Right, so
lower, but that's
I
a
think
different
that
matter.
it's important, and,
There's a separation here.
it's important to understand that, and it was very clearly laid out in the report that we wrote, that everything that's not effectively the Snow Bowl is CMP standard offer. And that what we're trying to do is hopefully identify solar, whether it be town-owned land or some larger outside entity that can provide us land in concert with other municipalities or any sort of, that would be able to cover 100% of that small
Stated offer.
standard offer.
I
With
believe,
solar.
would I be correct in guessing that the wastewater treatment plant is also not standard offer?
That's correct. The wastewater, I'm not sure about that, to tell you the honest truth.
I mean, that's going to have a high demand.
Right, I'd have to look at that spreadsheet again, but that account, and interestingly, the wastewater has several accounts, some of which are small and some of which are not small. So there,
I've only heard it in terms of the Snow Bowl. I haven't heard it in terms of, but it's never
Yeah.
come up in conversation.
yeah, so, but again, that spreadsheet is a vastly interesting and important, useful resource.
I have a spreadsheet, but I don't think it's the one that you're talking about.
I'll make sure, I'm sure I already have, but I'll make sure and share it to
You
you
have?
again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Google Docs spreadsheet, Google Sheets, so that it's
Accessible. Will you share that?
accessible. Yes.
Great.
And it's got every account number, It has what type of account it is, how much we spent, and in 2018,
Okay.
month by month.
So, that's great, and thank you for,
And that's where those numbers came from, where we, in our report, where we based how much the expansion of Sagamore Farms would offset.
right,
Go from,
okay.
I don't remember,
So,
25 to 89 or something like that, % of the non-REC delivery.
so the question is, we have made a recommendation about Sagamore Farm site, but those of us who attended the CDAC meeting just before, they're still looking at how the Sagamore Farm site can be used in other ways. And, there's a question about whether solar expansion is the best use of the open spot of land, and we're not going to get into that discussion here because we've had it many times. But I do want to say that, as you probably know, our planning director is looking at other sites, not necessarily in Camden. So we're looking at sort of community solar opportunities that are cited elsewhere that we could buy into. And he has his eye on some places that he did not divulge that look promising for Camden to participate in. So he wants to chase those down and did not have an update for me for tonight.
I have one question. I know that the members of the Select Board who were concerned about putting solar panels at Sagamore Farms because it might not be the best use for it, were going to go on a walk, go there with the people who can tell you whether or not it's a good place to put houses. Did that happen? And what?
That has not happened yet.
Okay.
There's
That was discussed-
in the CDAC meeting where all of CDAC may make a, and Anita asked for energy to be included as well, so we all go
Okay.
to have that walk through and see.
What does CDAC stand for again?
Camden Economic Development.
Advisory
something.
Committee.
Advisory Council.
Is this
Advisory committee.
where the town is looking at putting affordable housing out there?
That's one option they're looking at.
Not affordable housing, but yeah.
Well,
reasonable.
definitely some people think it's going to be affordable housing.
I know.
I'd like to just, as delicately as I can, remind the Select Board that they had made a commitment to me that if we provided facts and figures on Sagamore Farm expansion, that they would also do their due diligence to provide facts and figures on roadway costs, feasibility of housing, and so what I'm concerned about is continued delay and potential. I think that what it would be nice to have from if again, and I want it to go on record here, is that I have absolutely no attachment to Sagamore Farms whatsoever for solar, but I do have attachment to rapid development of solar for the town, and so. What I'm hoping to hear from the town in short order is some sort of feasibility for road and/or construction, because we could very quickly solve this or settle this debate potentially by going, yeah, that's not going to work.
I can address that. Jeremy brought up, the planning director brought up in the meeting today, he's meeting with a traffic engineer tomorrow to access, to look into road access and see what the feasibilities are.
Great.
Can I address something on this? Even though I'm leaving the committee, if you need my assistance at any time on this issue, I'm happy to volunteer it. I was on the Camden Affordable Housing Committee and the Camden Affordable Housing Organization for 19 years, 18 years. And for the town to say, yeah, that'll be good for affordable housing, belies
the fact that putting affordable housing up is almost impossible to do, realistically. I think we did 30 houses in the 19 years I was there, several subdivisions. I have tons of facts and figures on what we spent and that sort of thing. So if you need some assistance in that area, it's a pipe dream that doesn't really come true.
I know that Jeremy's talking about not, the housing he's talking about, there's an island trust, I think, that worked in Ellsworth or something, that actually, it's like medium price housing. It's not, low-cost housing, it's affordable housing. And he's talking to a group that actually has accomplished it in one of the islands, and he's exploring it.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that. Our idea of low-cost housing started at about $210,000.
Yeah.
That was the floor.
And I think that's
We
what,
did every trick in the book to get it down.
that's working on. But as he gets more information on that, then that's something we can bring forward as well.
I'd be curious to see what he has.
Yeah, I was just remembering from when a bunch of Watershed students and a few Camden students went to the town hall and we met with some select board members. The motivation for not immediately jumping on putting solar panels there was affordable housing. It was not median price housing. It was not housing, not high price housing. It was affordable housing. That was the only thing that was mentioned. That was the only reason to not immediately put solar panels there. And affordable housing is impossible, right? Nobody is actually suggesting affordable housing who has tried to put affordable housing in Camden before.
Not us.
Yeah,
We did 30 of them.
It seems like,
Are you still extant?
But you only took 19 years.
it seems like it's just delaying. And I don't know, it doesn't really seem like, certainly affordable housing isn't going to happen. And the fact that depending on which people you talk to, the promises change. It's like, oh, no, we'll figure out whether or not we can put affordable housing there, and then we'll put solar panels if affordable housing is impossible. Well, affordable housing is impossible, so we can move beyond that. So what about median price housing? Well, would it be a good place for median price housing? Because I certainly remember a few months ago that we were being told that we only had, that in 3 weeks we would find out whether or not it was possible to put housing there. It's been significantly longer than that, and we haven't. And nothing's happened, right? The Energy Committee has put in all this work. We worked a ton on our proposal, and nothing has happened from anybody who wants housing. They have nothing. There's been no actual people to go down there and check whether or not it would work. And I don't know why that is, but nothing has happened. And as someone who will have to deal with the fact that we didn't put up solar panels, I don't like that.
Everything takes longer than you would like it to. It's just unfortunate. Jeremy is working on, among a lot of other jobs he has, he's doing the best he can. There are other considerations for it. The one thing I can say, the town acquired this property, I believe, in 1946, and one thing has happened, and it's because of this committee, the solar panels. So,
Right, so I think what I think is incumbent on, and I'm glad that this is being streamed, and I hope people are watching, because what I'm asking the town to do is to get busy and make a decision rapidly about where we are going to offset our non-renewable energy use. And I really don't care where that will be, but I do care that it happens rapidly. And when I mean rapidly, I mean unprecedentedly rapidly for the town of Camden, because we're not in a position to sit on our hands and even with good faith of, everybody's trying to do the best they can, we're in a different regime in the world where speed is important.
I think one of the things I saw today, Jenna Lookner, who's another one of our select board members, posted on her Facebook page today an article from CNN about the climate situation and problem and the 12-year that weren't, the world is not even coming close to meeting the 12-year deadline that we have. And it was a very interesting article, so maybe there's some more awareness about how essential and urgent new solar panels are, and not, they can't be delayed for a year or 2 years or 4 years.
Yeah.
That's how I feel anyway.
Well, I think we are seeing it and experiencing it, the effects here in Camden. I walked down by the Harbor Park, and I think it was a good 12 feet into Harbor Park that the seaweed was scattered from the last high tide. That's not normal,
Yeah, one thing.
but it's the new normal.
One thing that the town has worked on, the state of Maine has identified a number of towns to work with. There's some grants about working on sea level rise
Right.
and studies about that. So that's something that the town manager has procured for the town, so we are working on that as well.
Well, that's
So
excellent.
we're working on a lot of different issues. It's you know,
Are you,
yeah, the overall plan is daunting, and we're trying to do as much as we can, but everything takes time. But I think the solar panels are essential and urgent.
so anyway, I was encouraged that our planning director was working on identifying sites that are not necessarily in the town of Camden, but that we can participate in for solar expansion, even if they don't choose to do it at Sagamore Farm. I would have to add to that I am not really encouraged. I myself don't have a sense that that site will be selected by the town, but we'll see.
An off,
The Sagamore Farm site will be selected by the town.
and again, I want to make sure that it's clear to everybody in the town government that I have no
Right.
attachment to that particular property, but what I am attached to is rapid
I
identification.
I think you've made that clear, yeah. Well, let's move on, we're running out of time. The Global Covenant of Mayors. So Alex has volunteered to give us an update on the plans moving forward, and I just want to say that there's no expectation that Watershed will have done work up to this point, because they really aren't to begin until around this time
Yeah.
or a little later. So Alex, if you'd like to give us an update, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
so I if you don't know, so the climate change class every year at Watershed does a project. Last year, we started the inventory for the Covenant of Mayors application, which Camden joined. And so this year, we're doing more work on that application, which started out with a greenhouse gas inventory of the town, which we're working more on this year. Well, actually, the class isn't working on it so much as I am for my senior project, because I'm graduating this year.
The
and-
inventory is what you're working on?
Yeah, I'm going to be working on the inventory because it was really rushed last year, and so we finished the inventory, but we didn't actually double check any of our data, so we ran out of time. So it's kind of astonishing, and actually anything got done. But, so I'm just going to kind of lay out a bit of what I'm going to do. So the first thing is going to be quality control, making sure everything actually was done correctly last year, because we didn't have time to do that. Double checking stuff like with the solid waste and with the wastewater, making sure the protocols were used correctly. It's actually something that your spreadsheet is going to be really helpful with, is splitting out municipal energy use, because last year's report didn't actually have municipal energy use as a area of it, really. I think it was included within commercial electricity, I believe. That's actually something I need to double check. But it didn't have its own slice, or didn't have its own section in any way, so that wasn't ideal. And also a user guide to make sure that both at so last year when we were doing all the data entry, I was actually the only one who did any of the data entry into the program, so nobody else knows how to do it. So I'm going to be writing a guide so that people can, both the climate change class can, and so make sure that the town, like members of the town, I'm planning on contacting somebody. I got an email about it. I think Audra wanted to know. I need to double check who, but there are a few people who want to know more about doing it so that they can actually, do the work of the town.
Interrupt just a second. One of the things the town has been talking about is making more use of interns from here on in, and actually having budgets and stuff for that. So that may be a good use of a person as the town brings in interns, a person to do that work, which may mean as you move on to college, maybe there's a chance for you to come back as an intern and work on the project as well for the town. So just a thought.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
know where we're going, but that's something to keep in mind.
Definitely. I'd definitely be up for doing that. So user guide, and also I'm going to be working with Rockland somewhat because they're currently trying to join the Covenant of Mayors. They want to replace their streetlights. They want to put up solar. And so kind of telling them some of what we've learned from our process and then providing them with this user guide. Assisting the class in some other ways. Maybe proposing some methods for meeting targets. It's kind of depends on the time frame of things, and yeah. So that's basically we're most of the way done with the inventory, and now the climate change class is actually moving forward with looking at risk assessment for the town. So a few years ago, the climate change class looked at risk assessment for the harbor, so looking at other areas of risk. And probably also just updating the risk assessment for the harbor and that kind of stuff.
And has that have anything to do with phase 2 of Covenant of
Yes.
Mayors?
So phase 2 of the Covenant of Mayors is risk assessment and starting to set goals. And also you're supposed to deal with solid waste then, but we actually already started dealing with solid waste treatment. But that would be when, so it's this second year. We actually got an extension on the first year because we ran out of time. But that's when we're going to be starting the risk assessment and the climate change class is going to start working with the town to figure out what kind of goals we want to set.
This year, you're going to be working your goals?
Yes. And probably also working with the Energy Committee. And then the third year is actually setting a plan to deal with the risk and meet the goals.
And one thing to note is that we probably need to do more outreach about the Global Council of Mayors, so I'm hoping that you're going to meet with pretty much every committee in the town would be good. Because, for example, 2 of our students went to the Budget Committee meeting.
They didn't know we were on there.
And they didn't know that we were members, is that correct?
Yes. So actually, that's another thing I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing probably 2. I'm not exactly sure how many presentations. I'm going to be doing some presentations at the library in the coming month to, just to the public, to kind of let people know what is the Covenant of Mayors, that we have joined it, what that means, what the watershed class is doing, what I'm going to be doing, and why it's important, just kind of the basic information so that, because after hearing that story of going to the Budget Committee, we kind of realized, the general public of Camden doesn't actually know anything about this. And so it's kind of hard to imagine when you're sitting in every Energy Committee meeting. But if people don't know about it, they can't support it.
That's right,
They
that's
can't.
right.
But the hopeful thing is that with two of our students from the climate change class did go to the Budget Committee meeting, made a very clear presentation, and people were like, oh, thank you for coming. Now we know. We're going to keep this in mind. So,
That was very wise. Thank you for doing that.
and that was as a direct result of our, what I might say, somewhat confrontational meeting at the town offices, where the students basically said, you don't hear us, you're not hearing us. And they're like, well, if you really want to do something, go meet with the Budget Committee, which then the students did. So I think that we need to continue to coordinate these efforts, watersheds efforts, wind planners. There's all kinds of energy in the young people of Camden and Rockport and surrounding areas to be engaged, and I think that that there is a disconnect between the speed at which these young people are interested in making progress and the speed at which our traditional government has made progress. And I think those are going to end up being contentious and difficult encounters unless people start to say, oh, wait, we do need to move more quickly.
Right.
So you're in favor of moving quickly?
I am in favor. I'm in favor of moving quickly on climate change mitigation, even when we make mistakes.
Thank you. I just
I'd
wanted
like
to make
to-
sure we're all clear on
Yeah.
that. I didn't want to
Tell
leave
us
my
how you
last
really
meeting.
feel, Pete.
Just, since we are live streaming, let's get this right out there, and I think it's important to
I'd
make
like
people
to
understand.
mention, and Alex may not be aware of this, but the town meeting form of government that we have in Camden is not a nimble form of government. It may be democratic, but it's not nimble. It's not like a city where you have an elected mayor, and the mayor makes decisions that actually are kind of beyond the input of the townspeople
Well,
after they voted for him.
I'm
Speaking, that's how I think. Decisions can be made more rapidly by a mayor and a town and a council than they can by a select board.
Well, I want to push back on that, Anita. For example, if the town said, okay, we want to bring Sagamore Farms to the town meeting, we could have that done. So I don't think you can say that our town form of government is slowing down the process of adopting solar. This is strictly, the
Right.
process is slow, not because of any structural impediments in the way, but because there are certain members of the town government who feel like that and, fair enough, there are differences of opinion about what is the best use of our town land,
Right.
but that has nothing to do, the speed of that has nothing to do with our town government,
There are many decisions that require voter input. The voters must make that
Exactly,
decision.
and we've seen that before,
have
where we
seen-
had special town meeting.
Can have special town meetings, it is possible, but I put to you that the select board is averse to scheduling regular special town meetings rather than making their decisions at the known voting times.
Right,
of-
so for example, if the opposition to Sagamore Farms were to drop by the planner and the town manager, we could be in a position at town meeting to say yay or nay. And so I have to take issue with your characterization of the process being slowed by the form of the government of the town, because that is not what's happening here.
Well, I'm not really going to characterize what's happening here. I'm only just going to say, I believe that, I could be wrong, but I believe that there is a difference in ability to act quickly,
You're talking
Based on
about two different things,
the
but I think
type-
we're getting off topic.
the type of government structure that we have. And the reason we can't have special town meetings regularly is basically the select board is keenly aware that at special town meetings, which generally happen in this room, and are advertised, people are just not able to tune in to the fact that they exist at all, and often are not.
So then I would ask that we bring Sagamore Farms to a town vote at the town meeting, because I'm confident that we would get overwhelming approval.
Yeah, that's possible, but I don't think we need to vote on that at this time for the committee. Okay, but
And
thank you
is
for
the-
your input.
Just a point of understanding, the ability to get something scheduled onto the town, the vote at the town meeting, meaning on the docket, is that solely the purview of the select board?
Yes.
Okay.
You can
And
do
is there-
it,
is
you
there
can
any
do it by a
citizens-
citizen, there's a citizens
Referendum? kind of a-
which was done last year to get the plastic bag vote, because the select board,
And that's a matter of so many,
so many signatures, and if you get a certain time. But you're right at the deadline for the June meeting right now. I don't know if there's enough time in either case to get at this point.
How many signatures do you need?
It's a percentage of how many people voted in the last election. I think for the plastic board one, they had to get like 270 signatures. I think that was the number. It's off the top of my head. So it's,
What about this March Saturday? Can we get the signatures there?
I don't know I don't remember the procedures for it, and I don't know, the cutoff may have already happened for the June ballot already, because it's already been, there's a cutoff for things that have to be voted on either in the secret ballot or in the town meeting. And I think we've already hit that cutoff. But I may be wrong, but if it's not, it's days away.
And again, and I digress a little bit, but at the town meetings that I've been to since I've been a resident of the town, there's also some opportunity for things to be brought up that aren't already on the docket, at least on the budget side of things. Am I mistaken in that? So is there some,
I couldn't tell you. I just
Okay.
don't know.
that might be something to investigate.
Especially when there is zero upfront cost and $350,000 of potential savings over 20 years.
Right, so I think that is something that people, I mean, it certainly could be brought up at the town meeting, and there may be an opportunity, it's possible, I'm saying, it may be possible that that ship has not left the harbor yet.
I just don't know all the ins and outs of that.
We should move on.
I think we should. The next item under the Global Covenant of Mayors is that the financial Director of Finances, Jody Henson, has agreed via email to work with Alex and Watershed in creating annual reports with regard to the electrical consumption, the fuels, and just to help that data from the town be presented in a way that can be entered into the data that we need to fulfill the Global Covenant of Mayors requirements of reporting. And that will be, we have not previously been presenting data in that way and gathering data in that way. And she is very happy to work with Alex and meet with him on that. And then coming from the Watershed students and their teacher was the request about whether she can also gather any information about the types of vehicles that are registered in the town and what kind of fuels they use. And
Yeah, that would be great.
so this is all helpful information, and it's great to see this kind of cooperation coming forward on these data. Great. Anything else on Global Covenant Mayors? Did you finish, Alex, saying what you wanted to say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Maine State. So, this relates to expansion of the solar array in a way. Because the laws at the state level do impact whether or not we can expand the array in the first place. And I'm not positive on where the ordinances, where the legislation is with regard to expanding array sizes, but I know that they're working on it.
So Vicky Dudera said that July.
July.
That she expects a vote in July.
Okay. So the net metering did pass, so we're back to net metering from gross metering, which is changing back a situation that Governor Paul Page put into effect, is now switched back to the net metering credits for solar production.
And they remain at 100%. There's no tiering.
Ignition.
So that's very good news for
That
solar.
has no material effect on
The town,
on
no.
our array because we
No.
got in before the deadline.
Correct.
Okay.
The towns of Camden and Rockport and beyond were invited to hear a presentation on April 4th at the Rockport Opera House by Seth Berry, who is a representative from Bodenham, and Representative Vicky Dudera from Camden Rockport, Senator Dave Mearmont from our region, all of whom serve on the Energy and Technology Committee for the state of Maine, and all of whom are Democrats. They were sponsored by the Democratic to make this presentation. Seth Berry is advocating for a state buyout of CMP and Emera on a statewide level and the creation of a consumer-owned Maine Power Authority. Does anybody want to talk any more about that, or should we just make it a statement?
Sounds interesting.
Alex,
People can read
No,
about it in the
it's-
paper all they want.
It was a very interesting talk.
okay.
Yeah, it was.
Did you want to say anything more about that? Okay, very good.
Wanna eat
Dana
dinner.
says no.
Common sense.
All right, energy survey of municipal buildings. This came out of an interesting discussion that I had with our town planner, Jeremy Martin. First of all, I want to reiterate that Jeremy Martin, our town planner, and Audra Kaler Bell, our town manager, are wonderful advocates and very much on the team that we are on in terms of wanting to save energy for the town and save energy in general. And they really do want the town to move forward as best it can to reduce its energy use. And so we're not having to fight to accomplish these goals. We've got great advocates at the town office. So one of those things that we can probably assist with would relate to doing an energy surveys of our municipal buildings. And this is obviously something that we need to do with the Opera House and with other buildings that the town owns. And while there are costs associated with energy surveys, Jeremy and Audra both feel that the money can be found in the town coffers for such surveys.
I can say that the Select Board has had conversations about this building. We've sat in our meeting and said, why aren't we start doing more with this building? So we're at a
So-
point now where we're all in agreement about that.
Jeremy suggested that our committee come forward with a recommendation that we move forward so that it's coming out of our committee to the Select Board that we recommend that these surveys.
Brian and I will remember that we've been talking about this since the first Energy Committee.
Already been done.
We have been talking about.
And we did do.
We did do some.
We did do some, and we do have those numbers, so I'm confused,
Well-
once again, by,
Different people.
but the information exists.
The report from Cordia is only about that big.
Right, so I'm confused by why we don't already, we have the information.
Great, that we have the information, then may I suggest that we present the information again to our new
Fabulous.
new since then town manager, new since then planner.
Fabulous.
And the present array of select board members. It doesn't hurt to repeat it, let's just
That
tell
should
them
be our
what we've
motion.
got.
I'll move to present it.
Thank you, Dana.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Okay, so who is going to gather that information? I don't have it in my pocket.
Well, the town,
Already
I'm
has it.
guessing, has that information already in their,
Who's going to get our hands on that specific information and present it?
Well, I can take a look at, I can get in contact with Audra and/or Jeremy and see if we could track down that report. I used to have a copy of it, but that was 10 years ago, and I'm pretty sure I don't anymore. But Cordia still exists, and I bet they still have a record of it.
They
if we
have a
need it.
copy of it. They probably email it to you.
Yeah, it'll probably take a hard drive worth of, but whatever. It was a substantive document.
Yeah.
which was paid for, correct?
Yes, so yeah, mostly by, I mean, the audit itself was paid entirely by Efficiency Maine, and then we paid 50% of the cost of improvements up to a maximum of $20,000. So the town invested $10,000 to save $5,000 a year.
Was anything done at the time?
Yes, oh yeah, we enacted the measures that fit within the limited scope of dollars that were available to matching dollars from the state. And so it mostly had to do with
Lights.
in controls on the heating system. There were valves that were installed backwards and et cetera, et cetera. So there was a whole retrofit that was done that at the time was forecast to save about $5,000 a year. Now, that was when oil prices were peaking at $4 a gallon as well, but it's almost $3 a gallon now for another two.
But the information's there.
Yeah, and there's
The town
information
has
for
it. We can
further,
get another-
So,
further
Brian-
stuff. So I'll pursue that with Audra and/or Cordia and Jeremy to make sure that we get that.
Who's Cordia?
They're the group that did the energy analysis of the building.
It's a construction consultant company here in town.
Would you be so kind, Brian, given your expertise, to review the report, evaluate what has been done, what could be done, get specific about it, and also with your updated 10 years later perspective, make recommendations as to what could still be done with regard to evaluating, if anything,
Yes, well, there's a lot
okay?
that can be done.
So-
Absolutely, I can do that. I can kind of summarize
Can you
where
let us know
where things are at.
when you might make that report? That you send it into the town manager?
Yeah, I mean, I can make sure they get a copy of the report, and I believe there was a synopsis or summary there, and it will be fairly easy to indicate what we actually did. What of those recommendations were accomplished. I think that's pretty,
Okay, so,
we should be able to distill out
so
what
you'll
has
get the
to be done.
report, you'll send it to the town manager, and you'll provide a status report on where we're at with regard to those recommendations, and determine whether you need to actually be put on the select board agenda to make significant recommendations about steps forward.
Sure, yeah. We'll see what, I mean,
Discuss with Audra about whether it should go on an agenda.
okay.
Do that? Okay. That's great, because it would be great to have your input on that. It's 7 o'clock. So
To adjourn.
do you, let me just mention the last few things, topics that are on the very long agenda. There's topics relating to public education. Without Marina here, I'm hesitant to discuss those. She's such an important advocate for our PR work.
I could do some of that at the presentations I'll be doing, so.
Yeah, one thing I would recommend, Alex, is maybe be in touch with Linda Clancy, Penn Bay Pilot, because I think student presentation to some of these committees and so forth, I think that might be something that she would find attractive to write about and get it out on kind of the airwaves that way, so to speak.
Do you need,
Do you know Linda? Do you need her
You need
contact info?
contact
We've got several students that write for the paper, so.
Yep. My sense is Alex got his hands full doing the thing, but for her to.
No, he's got plenty of time, 6 hours a day, man. I got him.
Trust me,
He's got
everything
more
you can
than
give
enough
me
time.
to do would be great, because
I like
I
some
need
of that.
stuff to do,
so
besides just read.
we have,
Appendices.
as a committee, sponsored public presentations at the library before, but unfortunately, they were not well attended, generally speaking. And so I would like, if you have time to do things, Alex, I would like you to really push the PR about your PR, the PR about your presentations. And Pete, you can help him with, how to make it tempting. Bake cookies,
Well, we are
whatever
lucky
it
that we
takes.
have 2 watershed students who have regular columns,
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
so you should use them well.
So anything you can do to get that word out there would be very helpful, I think.
Speaking about that, I don't remember, are people aware of the Sierra Club Maine's 4th Climate Action Conference that's happening on Saturday, May 4th up
Is-
I'm attending.
up in
Yes.
Belfast at the Hutchinson Center. So that's an excellent opportunity and certainly would encourage members of the Select Board and other interested citizens to consider attending that. It's from 8 to 4:30, and I can send people a flyer about that, but, so are you attending or are you presenting? or-
I'm just attending.
Okay.
Would you be willing to write a short letter to the editor with a recommendation that people attend those?
Sure.
And we can also get,
That was not right.
Marina would, I think,
Not my forte.
I think Marina would be happy to do that. She's like, I want to do what I'm doing. I want to keep
Yeah,
working for the committee.
In touch with Marina, see if that's,
Give Marina a call, discuss it with
Yeah.
her, and ask her to write letters to the editor to raise awareness.
Or Alex.
Also
He's
write
a
a letter
really
to-
good
Great.
letter to the editor writer.
Okay.
all right. Alex,
Which I guess, I mean, is that just another thing to?
Put it on your list, brother.
CQ, right? Okay, I'm sending you this
Also
information right
tell
now.
them to,
And Marina.
so, about
That's great. We'll put off discussion about EV stations, and there's not a remote possibility that the middle school, there may be some movement with regard to solar panels on the roof with construction. And that's sort of the planning director is advocating. So we're hoping,
We've got an ally, and
yeah, so we're hoping to continue to push that rope if we can. So waste to energy, I just wanted to mention something that I'm kind of excited about, if I may. I literally stumbled upon a report online somewhere about wastewater catalytic hydrothermal gasification process, which is hydrothermal processing of wet waste that a company has been founded to research and do. And I read a little report on it and looked it up and passed the information on to our wastewater director, David Bolstridge, and he received that information enthusiastically and is pursuing that potential. So we don't know. There's supposed to be some test process that was done in Vancouver, and anyway, it's kind of exciting. It would be producing gas that can be burned. It would be producing some kind of a bunker C or number 6 crude oil that could then be refined, and that's all out of waste product that we produce here in compost presently. But this process is not in general use, so at least David is really excited about following through to see whether there's any potential there for our town. And I did learn that he gave me a pretty nice rundown, which I won't pass on at this point, about what they're actually doing at the wastewater treatment plant. I was curious about whether the process that we were discussing here would be in conflict with the work that's about to be done at the wastewater treatment plant. It would not be at all in conflict, that if this new process were to come to be used, it could be done subsequent to the retrofit. And also, I wanted to ask him whether there are any plans to do anything to the big warehouse building, because that is such a great surface for solar. And if we want to continue to try to push for that roof to be further supported in order to support solar, it won't be in the way of what he's doing. It won't be affected one way or the other by what they're doing at the wastewater treatment plant. Obviously, we'd need money for it. So that's a good thing, and I haven't myself let that go, that potential. So
Next meeting,
next meeting is
20th, because.
the date of the third
don't gloat.
Monday is
The 20th.
the 20th of May. Is there any reason we shouldn't schedule it then?
Because the 27th is Memorial Day, so.
Oh, there may be that's going to be when the Rockland Energy Committee presents their proposal to the Rockland City Council, which I was hoping to attend. I don't actually know what time that's at, but it is very likely to be at usual town meeting times, which would be
On that date, the 20th?
on the 20th, yes.
Maybe we could go attend that, is in lieu of our meeting, go attend that and provide support.
I'm sure they'd be happy to have more people voicing support.
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about continuing to follow up on solar expansion and other things that we're trying to get done.
Although we can, with your able leadership, do much of this work outside of the meetings.
Okay, well,
I'm just,
that's a thought.
Throwing it out
I
there.
think, should we just go ahead and schedule for the May 20th to keep? Okay, okay.
I might not be here then, but we'll see.
I don't expect you to be there, but we look
Depends.
forward to hearing your report later. Thank you.
scheduling the 20th?
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything else they wanted to bring up? Bruce, I know you're just dying to talk about something.
Things like that Waldeboro panel, I circulated a little email, I've had some thoughts from the sustainability group down there. I don't know what regular conversation or connection groups like that and like ours have with one another, but
Not enough.
I'm pretty new to this.
Not enough.
But it sounds like, they're putting, they've got an industrial site you talked about, maybe we can buy into an industrial site. I know nothing about the
Well,
details.
what would be great, Bruce, is if you could follow up with them and see if you can get them in touch with Jeremy and say, hey, you want to buy in?
Jeremy,
Martin,
And he is our
town planner.
town planner.
So, and I think, Bruce, what's important to understand is that much of the work of the committee happens outside of the meetings, and that if you could take something on like that on, then we make great progress.
sure, I can do that. The other thought I had, this is random, and I know we're way over it, but I know we looked at the landfill area.
Yes.
Did we look at the closed, it looks like there's a closed segment.
Yeah, there is. It's too early to build.
Okay.
They're not
Yeah.
allowed to build on a closed site until it's been there 10 years.
10 years, all right. I
10
just
years
saw
ago.
that Portland
We've got 8 more years.
put a solar
Yeah. We've
array
got,
on there.
and,
so-
and Belfast has one
The
too.
most logical place
Of course.
for solar array, totally. We just have to wait.
And I guess the other random thought was, of the buildings that draw the greatest power, have we explored rooftop as sort of a
We have, and the
eye?
Yeah, the problem with the rooftops of the current town buildings is that none of them let me state this carefully, that it is the informed opinion of the town's civil engineering consulting firm that we do business with, that none of the roofs can support solar as they are as built.
Got it.
That may be worth getting a second opinion on that.
That might, yeah.
It actually has to do with an interpretation of the code.
So are we adjourned?
Yeah, I moved in second.
Full-time adjournment here.
I just wanted to add to that, it has to do, I was reviewing my notes on that from several years ago when we were looking at rooftops before Sagamore Farm site was chosen, and it has to do with different engineers had different interpretations of the code, and if you're going to make a change that does more than 5% of, I think, weight bearing or something, that it requires a complete bringing the whole building up to code. There's more than 5% of something, can't remember what it is, expense or something. So there's the issue that
Something gets
it opens
triggered.
up is,
Yeah,
it triggers
yeah.
bringing the entire building up to code, which is like, and
Right.
so it just got messy. It got complicated, messy on every single one of the buildings.
And
We did look at that.
the cost of ground mount solar has dropped so precipitously that it is many cases more cost effective to just put it in a field where you can take a tractor out and in one day you can put in 35 screws and put up a 1.4 kilowatt array, as opposed to people climbing on building tops and all of this stuff.
But it does make sense in terms of using the land for some other purpose and then putting the solar on top of that purpose. And that's why I don't want to give up on the middle school, frankly.
Yeah. Well, is it the high school that has the solar and the wind?
Yeah.
That was nice.
And there's also, the idea of you could put the solar over the parking at the Snow Bowl.
At some cost.
That's at some cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was discussed also.
Affordable housing over there, and then snow, or
Put
solar. on top of
affordable
that.
housing over the parking lot, and then we put the solar panels on the affordable.
I move
housing.
that we adjourn.
Yeah.
Second, okay.
All in favor?
Adjourn.
Any opposed? Is there some way to power these down completely?
There's a power button on the bottom. I think we were told just to mute them.
Just let them use power